bringing you a kid-friendly radio show. Every Saturday afternoon on YouTube. Broadcasting live at 1 o'clock. Broadcasting live at 1 o'clock.
Hello and welcome to episode 58 of the Brit Show with me, Ethan. Coming up on today's show, part 2 of my interview with a poet who has had his poems listened to over by 100 million people and performed on This Morning and at the Royal Albert Hall, Tomfoolery. But before that, I just wanted to mention a few things. Firstly, I'm sorry that the show is a little bit late because I've been busy over the past few days with lots of stuff to do with the Queen's Jubilee, lots of celebrations and loads of stuff because it is the half term. So I've been very, very busy, including helping out at my village carnival where I did a little bit of presenting throughout the day, which was really fun, doing some live presenting at an actual event. The second thing is that the last episode was my 2-year anniversary and it was live, so it did go pretty well apart from a bit laggy bits and then a few technical difficulties at the end. But yeah, thank you to everyone who's watched it and watched it live as well. The third thing is I'm currently doing a challenge on this channel where I'm uploading a short, which is a short video, on this YouTube channel every day for a month. We are a week into it now. If you do want to check it out, you can on this channel because there is some extra behind the scenes and some funny clips in the month's content. The fourth and final thing is that I do want to mention I do have my own personal channel where I share some behind the scenes tips for podcasting and more. So if you do want to check that one out, it is in the link in the description down below. So now it is time to actually get into the interview. If you have not watched part 1 of the interview, it will be the top link in the description. In part 1, me and Tom talked about how he was as a little kid, getting into poetry, the great realization, filmmaking, and more. But now here is part 2. So obviously from all of them television interviews, you went on to make other poems. You went on to go on them again, including writing poems with other people like Philip Schofield for Holly's birthday on This Morning, and obviously one of your biggest one with Harry Potter actor Tom Felton. So how is it writing with other people?
They didn't write those poems. they read those poems with me.
How's it performing with other people then?
Yeah. No, I only feel confident enough to say that because they're both of those guys that you just mentioned, Philip Schofield and Tom Felton, have got real good sense of humors. And it was weird because in that period of time, as I said to you, there were lots of very famous people sharing this piece of work, and I didn't know any famous people, so it was very exciting for me. I was like, oh, I know the person very well. And so I would always, send a message afterwards to the person, just being like, hey, I just wanted to say a massive thank you for sharing my poem. I hope you're doing all right. It would be amazing if ever you wanted to collaborate on something. But if not, all the best. And no disrespect to anyone, but some people kind of just wanted to share the poem, and that was all that they really wanted to do. They didn't want to do anything else, and that's fair enough, because these people are really, really busy. But then there were some people who would write back and be like, oh, I'd love that, and then would follow through. And Philip and Tom were two of those people. John Barrowman was another one who we did a poem together. He was in Doctor Who, which my little brother and sister love. So that was exciting. Yeah. But yeah, it was, from my perspective, I just I just like meeting interesting people, and you don't have to be famous to be an interesting person at all. Actually, I know lots of very interesting people who don't have, you know, any desire to be in the public spotlight, but people who are in the public spotlight often are there because they've done something interesting, you know, in their life, and that's a good indication of someone who's got a really interesting life experience. So whenever one of those people would you know, show any kind of enthusiasm to collaborate, I was just like, yeah, let's do it. And so and then weirdly, in a weird way, like, you end up kind of becoming friends as well, just because whenever you work with someone on something, you start to like, you know, you start to find out more about them, and you start to like them. So Tom has now become a good friend. We're talking about doing a series of poems together where I'll write them and we'll act them out together, and there'll be like conversations like good versus bad, optimism versus pessimism, you know, greed versus humility or whatever. Like, and because he's Slytherin, he's happy to play the baddie, and because I'm this little hopeful poet, I get to play the goodie, which is sweet. And so we're talking about that at the moment. And Philip was really nice to me. He sent me his book that he wrote during lockdown, and I sent him the book that we made of The Great Realization. And yeah, I mean, people, I've always thought, and I still do, that if you just spend your life trying to meet interesting people, it makes your life more interesting. And I really want to have an interesting life. Like, I really want that. So yeah, it's cool. It's cool. It was cool that they wanted to. And yeah, just, I mean, to be honest, like, I feel pretty strongly that for the first 26 years of my life, I was trying to get people to work with me, and it was an uphill battle. And then suddenly I released a video and it was easier. And so I was like, let's not waste this, because, you know, because I don't have to think back very far to think how tricky it was to get people like that to spend time on something with me.
Yeah, so you also wrote the Midnight Moment that was performed on BBC's coverage of New Year's Eve just after midnight. So how did that come about? Was it, had you have written a poem like that before, or did the BBC reach out to you and approach you about that?
Well, so the BBC broadcast the fireworks, but they don't organize the display.
Oh, okay.
The company that organizes the display is a company called Jack Morton, and for the last 20 years, Jack Morton has been in charge of organizing London's New Year's Eve fireworks and many other things. They're a massive company, but that's one of the things that they've been doing for the last 20 years. And the way I got in touch with them was they actually, in the year of the Great Realization, they reached out to me and to my manager, Alex, and asked whether they could use 20 seconds of the Great Realization poem in the firework display for 2020 into 2021. So they didn't need me to do anything apart from like give permission. I didn't need to write anything new because it was from the Great Realization. And of course, like in a heartbeat, I gave permission. I was like, yeah. I was like, definitely use that. That would be amazing. So they did. And that was very exciting. And then I kind of thought, wow, you know, a bit of poem that I wrote was used in the nation's firework display. That will never happen again. And then the next year, they contacted me in October, the October before the fireworks, and basically just said that they'd had really good feedback on the use of my poem the year before, and would I be interested in writing like a whole poem for the Midnight Moment? And I just you know, you don't say no to that. I really wanted to perform it as well, but that wasn't. They just wanted they wanted someone with more you know, profile to perform it, and they found a wonderful actor called Giles Terrera, but they wanted me to write it. And to be honest, as I said to you before about opportunities in life, it's like there was normally I like to perform my own poems, but in an instance like that, you just say yes.
Yeah. And so what was it like hearing the Big Bang chimes, bringing in the new year, and then hearing your words, that the words that could have been many people's first words that they had heard in 2022? How was that?
Well, I had a lovely New Year's. I was in King's Cross in my friend Joe and Almaz is flat. They're a couple, Joe and Almaz, and I was in their flat with them, my friend Cameron, my manager Alex, his flatmate Scarlett, and my friend Stan. And it was just the 6 of us or 7 of us. I'm not sure how many people I just said, but it was us. And basically, I every year I like to do dry January. I mean, obviously, you know, you're 13, so I strongly hope that you're not getting drunk. But it's easy. It's easy because I'm 27. It's easy to go through periods of time where you think, oh, I drank too much last week or whatever. So what I tend to do every year is I do dry January, where I don't touch alcohol for the whole month of January. So I wanted to have a fun New Year's, and I wanted to kind of see it off with a bang. So I had a few drinks with my friends in the run up to midnight, and then I bought like a little bottle of prosecco, I think, because I'm too tight to buy champagne. And then you know, even though I was doing dry January, I agreed that like I could pop it at midnight, and you know, would have a glass and then would stop drinking for January. So I did that, but then we were on this sofa. We were on this big sofa, all 6 of us, and Giles was on the bridge and saying the poem that I'd written, and we all just watched it in kind of silence, but like really excited silence. And then as soon as he finished speaking and the fireworks went off, like all of my mates just like jumped on me like they do like the way you see people like jump on a footballer after they've scored a goal, you know. And I was just absolutely mobbed by all 6 of them. They were like screaming and going, ah, like that was amazing, you know. And so that was really nice. That was a really nice moment. So yeah, it was definitely, I mean, you know, after the first time it happened with the Great Realization, I said to myself, well, that was a once in a lifetime experience that will never happen again. And then it happened again last year. And maybe I need to stop being so pessimistic about what can and cannot happen, and maybe stop saying that sentence. But I'm pretty sure that will never happen again for me.
You never know. You never know. So because of the massive viralness of your first poem, the first that went viral, The Great Realization, you made that into a book. So how did that happen with a massive publisher? So,
well, yeah, I mean, I think that one of the things I found really hard was when we made that book, I had lots of aspiring authors write to me saying, when I say write to me, I don't mean pen and paper, I mean like DM. But I had lots of aspiring authors write to me being like, hey, I've just read your book, The Great Realization. I've written a kid's book and I want to get it published. Do you have any tips for me on how to get something published? And I am the worst person in the world to ask for tips on how to get published, because the way that I got The Great Realization published is so unusual. Like normally what happens is you write like a pitch for what your book will be, and
Yeah.
you send it out to publishers, and they decide whether they publish it or not, and you are the one left being like, please someone take it. And that's the situation I was in with my film, because the film world and the book world, of course they're different, but they're not that different. It's the same principle. It's like, we made a film and then we were sending it to Netflix and Amazon and Disney Plus and all these places saying, please, will you distribute this? And when an author writes to a publisher, that's what you're saying. Because the video was so successful, I found myself in a very unusual situation where I had lots of publishers writing to me saying, can we make this a book? And so the first thing I did was I got myself an agent, because I don't have the skills or the expertise to navigate that situation well. And I thought I'll probably mess it up if I try and do it myself. So I got a good agent, and then the agent, CAA, they're called, they kind of organized all the offers that all the publishers were making. And then we found, I think, 5 or 6 from the list of publishers that wanted to make it a book. We found 5 or 6 that it would be really exciting if we made a book with them. And then I had meetings with the representatives from each of those companies where they basically told me what kind of book they wanted to make it. And the thing that I went with HarperCollins in the end, and the thing that Egmont and Farshaw is like a division of HarperCollins. So we went with HarperCollins in the end because they have a really good relationship with schools and the curriculum, and they basically said, we will incorporate the Great Realization into school packs, which we'll send out to teachers across the country. And I just thought that was really, I thought that made it a really attractive offer. And so I went with them, and they told me that it takes normally like a year and a half to minimum to like make a book with someone. Like, it's a very slow process, bookmaking. But we did it in 3 months because they wanted to. I mean, one lucky thing was obviously the thing was already written, and one of my terms was you don't get to change the poem. Like, I don't, because there was this line in the poem that they didn't want to keep in there, which was the line, and while we drank and smoked and gambled, our leaders taught us why it's best to not upset the lobbies, more convenient to die. And they're obviously publishing for kids, like kids book publisher, and they were like, we don't want to tell children what like a gambling lobby is, or a tobacco lobby, or an alcohol lobby. And I was just like, we absolutely should tell children what they are, because because you got to tell kids the truth. You can't, like, what's the point in like lying to kids? I understand you can't be obscene, and I understand, like, if there was like swear words or bad language in the poem, and they wanted to take that out, I think that's different. I think that's just catering to an audience. But all I was doing is bringing up the fact that there are tobacco lobbies, gambling lobbies, alcohol lobbies. There are groups of special interest groups in this world who have tremendous amounts of money, who pour that money into influencing governments to keep legal things that kill people all the time, like all the time. And so I was pretty interested in that when I was writing the poem. And then obviously the publisher, bless them, they weren't trying to censor me or be evil or wicked. They were just saying, we don't want this to affect sales, because we don't want parents to get angry about this line. And what I said to them is, I said, like, look, this poem has been seen by 100 million people, and most of them are parents who are writing to me saying, I showed this to my kids, or my child has learned your poem, or teachers saying, I'm playing your poem in my class, and no one has told me that line is a problem. And so if 100 million people can take it in the video, then they're going to get it in the book. And so eventually, like, they caved, and that was really cool, because I think it's the first ever kids book to mention a tobacco lobby, which I don't know. I don't get excited about like achievements or being the first to do something, but that I'm like, yeah, like I want to be the first to
Yeah.
tell kids that, because then maybe a kid will, in my head I thought maybe a kid will read that line and ask their parent, what does that mean? Because I don't understand, what does that mean? And then it's up to the parent whether they say it's none of your business or whether they explain it to their child. And you know, I think it's good to tell people about things that are going on in the world. I don't think it's good to lie to young people just because they're young. So anyway, so then we spent 3 months with a wonderful illustrator called Nomoko, who's based in Japan, which was pretty cool because my little brother and sister are half Japanese. We have the same dad but different mum. And then, yeah, like by, I think it was September, it was on the shelves, and
Oh, wow.
yeah, it was so cool, man. It was really, really cool. I didn't get to go down to like watch it get printed or anything like that. We've done a second book since then, and with the second one, like I got to go down and see it get printed, which was really exciting. But yeah.
How was it walking in to a store and just seeing your book on the shelf there?
Yeah, it was there's been a lot of these kind of wild bucket list type moments where you didn't even know that thing was on your bucket list, but when it happens you think, okay, well, you know, that's like, you know, that's, I don't know, I think we just, it's not so much about you know, trying to have all these experiences. It's just I think you're aware of how rare these things are that are happening to you, and so you just feel quite lucky, you feel quite grateful, you feel to an extent like proud of yourself, like you did a good job, and you know, and then it's weird, man. It's with like these moments like your poem at midnight or 100 million people or your book on a shelf. Like it's weird. You get this great feeling for a few days when it happens, and then you kind of, a few weeks later, everything has a really strange way of normalizing in people's lives. Like something's very exciting, and then you kind of go back to your base there. And it's kind of like, you know, if you win the lottery, that's not going to make you happy. I completely understand. I mean, obviously I've never won the lottery, and I do not have as much money as the people who have won the lottery. Nowhere near. But I do understand why people say that, and it's because when something tremendously exciting happens to you, it's tremendously exciting, and a few months later, you're exactly the same person. You know, hopefully you kind of kept your head and you didn't like go to all your friends, so long suckers, I'm gonna go make some new friends. Like, it's like you realistically, like, you live in the same place, you have the same habits, you have the same friendship group, you know, so after a while, like, just everything feels normal. And I really don't think that that's being ungrateful, because there are so many moments where I feel gratitude for any of the good things that come my way. But then, you know, you also, just as part of being a human being, you have days where you feel tired or stressed or hungry, or, you know, maybe something didn't go your way, that you were really hoping was going to go your way, and you feel those emotions. So yeah, it's success is really exciting, and it's many people pursue it, and it's a great thing to pursue because it will make you very comfortable, and that comfort is really, really nice. But like meaning and happiness, I think they come from something else.
Yeah, because like you said, that there is a thing called, I think it's called gold medals winner for depression, where the
Yeah,
theory
yeah,
is
yeah.
like you work up to your dream all your life, and once you're there, you don't really know what to do, and
Totally,
that's
man. No, totally, totally. It's like you've got to try and enjoy the pursuit, because
yeah,
actually what they say is like, it's the journey towards whatever that thing is the bit where you find meaning and where it's exciting and where you have little
yeah,
wins and big losses and then bigger wins and bigger losses, and that's really fun and that's really meaningful. But actually, what's it's not the same as it's not the same, but it's a good example. My university lecturer said to me, is like, you've got to remember in life, look at your degree at university. It's like you work and you work and you work to get this degree, and then you have graduation day, and for one day, like, it's just achievement. In this day, this day is all about, you did it, you got your degree, well done. 2 days later, you're working in Starbucks, and
yeah,
you're at the
yeah,
bottom of the next mountain. It's like university. You're climbing that mountain. You get to the top, but as soon as you get to the top, the problem is you're at the bottom of the next mountain, and we
yeah,
as human beings just always want to keep climbing these mountains, and so it makes much more sense to enjoy the climbing process, because the climbing can take 3 years, but being on the top, that's for like a day. So
yeah,
so like finding a way to find the pursuit of the goal meaningful is like really cool. So you, for example, sorry to keep making it, I find it easier if I like imagine your situation, rather than just think about mine, because whenever I think about mine, I feel like I'm being egotistical. But your situation, it's like one day you may get an award for your podcasting. If you keep this up for, let's say, for 10 years, there may be this whole award ceremony for podcasts that's as big as the Oscars, because I think more and more people are getting into podcasts, and maybe you win that award. That will be a really, really, really exciting day. But like, what about the 10 years leading up to that day? Like,
yeah,
you've got to enjoy them. Otherwise, that day isn't worth it. Like, it's not worth it if you don't enjoy the climb,
yeah.
So, and also what happens the next day? It's like the next day, it's really funny. After the Great Realization got, I think we counted once and it was 100 million views. So that was very exciting, because we had to prove, the publisher couldn't publish that claim unless we could prove it. So we spent a day like going on YouTube and Facebook and Instagram, and the celebrities that shared it, would go on their page, and because a lot of them didn't just share it, they like reposted it, and so we'd go on their version of the
Okay,
post.
yeah,
So like this Bollywood star in India like reposted the poem, and his reposting of it had 10 million views. So we were like, well, they're 10 million views of the poem, so we'll add them. And so when we added up all the views, we got to like 100 million or whatever. And then suddenly you've got this number. Oh, you had a poem with 100 million views. What's interesting is my dad said to me, so what happens on the next one? Like, do you have to get 200 million views? And I was thinking, suddenly, what was really terrifying in that moment is I thought, if I can only find happiness by exceeding the previous happiness, I'm going to drive myself insane, because
yeah,
yes, this poem got 100 million views, but if the next one doesn't get 101 million views, does that mean it's a failure? Does that mean like it's a bad poem? Does that mean like I'm not a good poet, or like I shouldn't be doing this? It's like sometimes something ridiculously unlikely will happen to you, but it can be a huge blessing. Obviously, we all know how it can be a blessing, but it could also be a bit of a curse, because then you're like, what if I never do anything in the rest of my life that's as successful as that? We all like to think that our biggest success is ahead of us, not behind us. So it's like,
Yeah.
what if the best thing the most successful thing you're ever going to do has already happened? It's like, I'm 27. I want to live, fingers crossed, for another 60 years. It's like, what happens if I've already done my big thing and then the next 60 years is like all downhill? It's like, that's not a nice thought to have. So
No.
the only way to counter that thought is to be like, all I will try and do is enjoy what I'm doing. If good things come, that's very, very good. If good things don't come, that's okay. I'll try something else, and that mentality has kept me relatively stable for like 2 years. Obviously you have days where like you work really, really hard on a poem, or you work really, really hard on a video and you post it online and people don't respond to it as well as they have with other stuff. And you get this feeling inside that's like, oh, I didn't do so well. And then you've kind of almost got to throw some cold water on your face and be like, stop being a fool, man. Like, just because something good happened to you in the past doesn't mean that this is a bad thing now. It's like, I had a poem the other day that I released, and I think like 10,000 people watched it, and I thought, oh, that's not many. And then I thought, what are you talking about? 10,000 people? Like 10,000. And it's really weird, man. It's like,
yeah,
how can you be ungrateful that 10,000 people wanted to listen to your poem? But that's what the internet and social media can do to you. Like, that's what it can do. And I think I hear a lot of instances of people that do a similar job to me, that involves social media or views or shares or likes or listens or downloads or whatever. And this numbers game it's weird because it's not like you can ignore it. You have to pay attention to it because you have to know whether what you're doing is growing or shrinking. Like, you have to know because you have to know, should I continue doing it the way I'm doing it, or should I try and change it a bit to see if people prefer that? And so you have to pay attention to it, but it can also be really maddening. So I don't know what the answer is, by the way. I'm just a fool who does poems.
Tomfoolery. So do you make a full-time earning out of poetry, and how did that feel when you knew you could do the thing that you've done as a hobby since you've been in uni as a job now?
Well, nothing is certain. So all I think is I'm never above doing what my family would call, a normal job, because they think what I do is very unusual. Because it is quite unusual, but I am fully prepared and comfortable with the thought that if I run out of money, I'll go work in a bar, because I've done that before. I've got experience. There is nothing wrong with bartending. Lots of my very best friends bartend today, and they're wonderful at it. So it's like, if this ship sinks, I'll go do that. Or I'll try and become train to be a filmmaker, or maybe I'll train to be a teacher or whatever, like that. I will always just try and work. But as long as this lasts, I will try and keep it going. And I promise you, like, I'm not just saying these things. There was never a day where I thought, I can make a living doing this. It was like, oh, what can I do that mean if this stops, it wasn't my fault? Because I genuinely believe that if this stops and I did everything I could have done, but it just stopped anyway, because sometimes things stop, then I'll be okay with that. Like, I won't lose any sleep, and I'll go and find something else to do with my time and my life. If it stops because I was lazy and I got complacent and I didn't try, then I will lose sleep. Then I'll be like, you had an amazing opportunity and you wasted it. And I really, one of my biggest motivations to work all the time is that thought. It's the thought of, if this goes away and you didn't do everything you could, then you're a sucker. Like, ultimately, because like, I've got friends who I go to the pub with, and I say, like, boys, like, I've got this really close group of friends that I went to school with, and we go to the pub regularly, and then I'm like, boys, tell me, like, what's happening in your lives and in work. And like, one of them works in recruitment, one of them works in IT, one of them works in the Weatherspoons, and I've got nothing against any of those jobs, but none of them want to talk about their work. They only want to, they're like, don't worry about that, Tom, what's happening? And I can see that they're so interested in this unusual venture that I've started. And it is, man, it's exciting, and like, every day's different. I get to like go to different places and speak to people. I get to go into schools, which, when I was in school, the idea that a school would have ever invited me to come and speak in the school is like, no. Like, they'll invite the smart kids to go speak in schools. They're not going to invite me. Like, I'm the class clown. But now, like, schools want me to come in, and I'm always like, yeah, let's go. So like, I'm going later this month. I'm going to Blackburn for 5 days to just do like schools back to back and just speak to schools. And then sometimes you get to do like poetry shows. And last November, I did a show. Well, no, not a show. I read a poem in the Festival of Remembrance in the Albert Hall, and the royal family were there, and the Prime Minister was there, and like, the Albert Hall is like, it's a big place, and then the next day you've got a day just answering emails all day. Yeah, obviously the Albert Hall days are more fun, but all of it's got to happen in order for this to continue. And I just want to see where it goes. But I'm really bad whenever people say to me, what's the plan? Because I have vague plans, and like, there are pieces of work that I've started that I'll see through to completion. But if you said to me, like, where do you see yourself in 5 years? I'm like, I don't know where I'm going to be in 5 minutes, bro. Like, I don't know. Like, honestly, and what's interesting about that question is, if you'd said to me 5 years ago, where do you see yourself in 5 years? I would never have said this, ever. So I almost feel like that guessing game is like, what could happen is potentially way more extraordinary than my imagination can conjure. So normally I just kind of, whenever I get asked that, I just make a little joke, and I'm like, I don't know, I'm making it up as I go along, don't tell anyone. And
everyone is.
Hey, tell me about you. Why did you start doing what you're doing?
Because I've always loved radio and TV and things, and when I was really young, I on my bed I would make a fictional radio station, and I would make my parents listen to it, and I would be making all of this fictional radio station, and then from there, like, I wanted to be a radio presenter, but like, I was kind of just like waiting around for a radio station to call me up and say, oh yeah, can you come on the station? And so when lockdown hit, and we had a load of time, I was like, why not create my own radio show on YouTube? Why not do this? Best time to do it now. So then I did it, and
so cool,
because eventually I do want to do this as a job. Eventually I do want to potentially go into TV presenting. That is my dream there. That's my goal. And hopefully with this experience, with this years of experience, that hopefully that will help me along.
Dude, I mean,
okay.
It's so cool, man. It's so cool. And how did it start? Like, was it really, like, at the beginning, like, your first, how many episodes have you done?
I'll have to have a look for you on it. 52, 51.
So what was episode 1 like?
Very bad.
Yeah, that's how I feel about my first poem, man. I'm like,
Yeah.
my first poem, I'm like, this is not Shakespeare. Like, this is
Obviously,
not-
like I've gone through puberty between them, so like my voice is so different. So like every time I do 10 episodes, so every time like I do like I'll do this on episode 60, I'll do like
Yeah.
the intro from episode 1, episode 5, episode 10, and you just see the voice progression getting deeper and deeper, and me like getting more confident. And I started with like interviewing my friends, and now I'm interviewing people like you, interesting people.
Well, I'm sure your friends are pretty interesting, but who was the first guest you managed to get that you were like, whoa, I'm going to speak to them? Who was it? Was it Claudia?
Yeah, but I had another one before that. I had the Marsh family that was quite similar to you, and did One Day More parody.
Yeah, they
Yes.
sang the Les Mis song. Yeah. Oh,
yeah. So I just reached out to them. So that was pretty cool. That was the first like person that was not one of my friends that I didn't know that I was interviewing. And then Claudia was incredible because I got Claudia on the show after I had been surprised on CBBC, and they surprised me with Claudia Winkleman. Then so I was surprised live on TV.
Why were you on CBBC?
So my mum saw on the CBBC website saying like, does your child have a dream or something like a dream job?
Yeah.
So it's a show that they do on Saturdays mornings, Saturday mashup. And so she applied for that, and they got back to her and saying, let's get him on. So they set up a interview that I was told was a research for CBBC. My parents told me that, but it was actually a call with the producer to see if I deserved the surprise. So then one time, like, so I was in I was going in for a surgery in the hospital a couple of weeks before. I was surprised, and the BBC called up, and they were saying, hello Deborah, and then my mum put it down and said, oh yeah, it must have been a scam call. And I was like, they knew your name, mum, like, but it was actually one of the producers from CBBC. So we were and then to get me watching the show, they said, oh yeah, they're going to show some clips of this research they've been doing over the week, so let's watch it through. And then when they got to the part in the show, it's called Living Your Dream or something, our phone rung, and my mum and dad had the laptop set up in the living room, and I was talking to the presenter live. And then they were like, oh yeah, we know you like radio, so we wanted and then they surprised me with Claudia Winkleman, and she invited me to introduce a song on her show, her Radio 2 show. So like half an hour later, I found myself talking to Claudia Winkleman live on BBC Radio 2 to millions. And while I was on there, I asked, would you be on the show, taking my opportunity? And then she said, yeah, of course, because she needs to say yes in radio. And then I introduced George Ezra's song, and I messed up George Ezra's name, but yep.
What did you call him?
I was like, because I'm so nervous. But she was like, oh yeah, I just call him George, to be honest. But yeah, so then after that, I like tweeted her, I emailed her BBC email, I did everything. She didn't reply, and then a couple of weeks later, I was like, oh no, I've not emailed Claudia Winkleman Management, so I emailed that. I Googled that, got an emailed it, sent a video of her saying yes to try and persuade the agent to do it. And then they replied to me saying, yeah, so what time are you recording? So,
Dude, man,
yeah.
you've got the hustle. You've got the hustle. You're gonna need this, because yeah, I mean, fair play to you. Like I was doing what you are describing when I was 25. Like 23, 24, 25. That's when I was doing what you were telling me now. You were doing it at 13. Like that's crazy. That's so cool. Well done, and long may it last. That's and then Claudia Winkleman led to Gabby Logan did it.
Yeah, because Claudia Winkleman was signed with a big management group. So I was just after that, I was emailing like all of the celebrities on that management group saying, I recently interviewed one of your other clients, Claudia Winkleman. And Gabby Logan came back, and in the interview, she said, yeah, Claudia said you were a great interviewer. She loved the interview. So that's why I decided to come on. But yeah. Yeah, it was crazy.
I hope you get a snowball effect where, you know, it just picks up speed. But you've got to do school as well at the same time. You're in secondary school.
Yeah, I'm in secondary school, so had to school today.
Wait, what? I mean, obviously, don't say where, but what? Are you in London?
No, I'm in County Durham, so northeast.
Oh, nice, man. Oh,
yeah.
So cool. Oh well, great stuff. Anyway, sorry, I was just I don't mean to flip the interview. I was just that's really
no, it's fine.
Good to see.
Never had a guest do that before, and it's nice. Okay, so we'll go back to you now, and we'll move on to doing a poem every day. So you do post a poem every single day of 2022. I think you're nearly up to 100 now.
Yeah, we're at 95.
Why did you decide to do that?
So basically, last year I started two big long-term projects. One of them was a film project, which, by the way, if we were recording this a few weeks from now, I would tell you all about. But sadly, I'm planning a big reveal, which I haven't done yet. I'm really sorry. But anyway, a few weeks from now, because that film is done. So we started a big film project and a big live show project last year, because obviously I was, after the Great Realization, I was doing more poems for my channel, but like you, going from your friends to Claudia Winkleman, like you always want to try and do something bigger, do something better. So basically, the truth is, I committed to two very long-term projects, which suddenly took up loads and loads and loads of my time. Filmmaking takes up so much of your time, and I was planning a live show as well. I went on tour last year. That took up loads of time. And then also I was trying to do lots of schools and find business opportunities, because I have a staff that I have to pay. So I had to do like lots of brand deals where I'd work with like a clothing brand or this or this or this. And if you don't do things like this, then your business starts to go down, and that's not good. So you have to kind of become a bit of a capitalist and be like, how can I make money from this so that I can pay all these wonderful people that work with me? Because we all have rent to pay. But anyway, I started doing lots of long-term things, and what I didn't foresee was that I was neglecting the pages. And the page, like a social media page, is like a plant in your garden. If you look after it and feed it with sunlight and water and whatever, it will grow.
Yeah.
But in my silly head, I thought, if I just leave it, it'll stay the same. And then when I've got one of these big projects, it will grow a lot. That is not what happens. What happens is, if you don't feed it, it starts to die. It starts to shrink. And what I noticed was my manager, Alex, like would call me more and more and be like, Tom, like when we look at the analytics of the page, you know, basically the geniuses over at Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube make it very simple for people like me. And either everything is green and it is pointing upwards, and that is good, or it is red and it is pointing downwards, and that is bad. And basically, I'd gone through a year where everything was green and it was growing, and engagement was up and all of these things. And then I committed to these 2 long-term, it's not like I stopped working, like I committed to 2 long-term projects that I think will be really exciting, but I stopped posting, and then everything started to go down, and I was like, oh no. So Alex was like, we need to fix this. At the same time, my very good friend Cameron, who films a lot of stuff for me, I call him Cameraman Cam. He is really obsessed with YouTubers and vloggers, and he really likes Casey Neistat. And Casey Neistat, I don't know if you've heard of him, but he's a YouTube. You have, okay. Well, weirdly, earlier in the conversation, I was saying like old school musicians and films, and then I had to remind myself, you don't know who these people are. But then now I'm saying YouTubers. You're like, yeah, Tom, I know who that is. Shows the generation thing. Anyway. So Cam was telling me that Casey Neistat did a vlog every day for like 2 years, and he didn't miss a day. And I was like, what do you mean he didn't miss a day? I was like birthdays, Christmas. I was like, he didn't miss a day. And Cam was like, no, he didn't miss a single day. And I was like, and bearing in mind, bro, like every time I put out a poem, because it's not just writing a poem, like I would write a poem, then I would turn it into a video. I was like, there's no way I could do that every day. I was like, maybe I could do 1 a week. And then Cam, like, he really likes to tease me, and he was like, oh, you can do 1 a week. Okay. And like, you know, like, how brave of you. Don't like a challenge. And I'm very competitive. And he was like, Tom could, you know, go do 1 a week, but he can't do 1 a day and all this. And he was teasing me for honestly, for about 3 months. And then on New Year's Eve, as I told you, I was doing dry January, but I was drinking up until midnight, and I was drinking with Cam, and Cam turned to me over a glass of wine, maybe glass of wine number 3 or 4, 5, and said to me, what if you did a poem every single day for this year, and your New Year's Eve poem that's being read like live on New Year's Eve on BBC One, what if that was number 1? And you didn't miss a day. And Cam was like, if you're going to do this, he was being so persuasive. He was like, if you're going to do this, start now. He's like, no one cares if you start on January the 14th. And do, like, people like challenges, and people like when things are, he started on January the 1st and didn't miss it or whatever. And so Cam was basically, and also, by the way, it is New Year's Eve, and I had not decided to do this. I had not told my manager.
Oh, wow.
I had not told any of the people that I'm working on the longer term projects with. And it was drunk on New Year's Eve. I turned to Cam and I said, I'm going to do a poem every day for 2022. And I'm not going to just let them be bad. I'm going to try my best to make them good as best I can. But I'm going to have to radically change things. Like before, I used to always film my poems on a nice camera with a nice microphone. I used to try and light them well. I used to get original music composed, all of these things. I was like, it has to be totally different. I have to film them. The rules are I have to film them on an iPhone, because otherwise it's just too complicated. But I can get cutaways from story blocks. I'll try and make the subtitles interesting. I'll use stock music. I'll try and make a good thumbnail. I'll make them for TikTok, because my TikTok account was really small then, and I wanted it to grow. So I was like, I'll make them for TikTok, and then we'll post the TikTok version on all the other places like YouTube, Facebook, Insta, Twitter. I was like, all right, let's go. And so then what I did, because I'm very competitive, is I announced on my channel that I was doing it. And as soon as I announced that I was doing it, I thought, if I don't do it now, I'll be really embarrassed. So anyway, January came, and genuinely, like, by the second week of January, I was like, I cannot. Even the amount of time it took to subtitle them because they're like 3 minutes long. Like, it's not just writing. Like, writing the poem would take me like an hour.
Yeah.
Filming it would take me like an hour because I was bad at filming it. I've got much quicker at all the things now. But filming it would take me like an hour because I'd do bad takes or I'd forget my words or whatever. And then editing it would take me like 3 hours because it's like, I want nice cutaways. I want to find nice music.
Oh,
I want
wow.
to
You edit
subtitle them.
yourself as well?
I edit myself. Well, I in March, I made the transition to outsource the editing. But for January and February, I edited them myself.
Okay.
But basically in January, like I was spending about 6 hours a day on the poem a day. But all of the other work that I had to do that I'd already committed to, the long-term projects, that I couldn't just stop them because they were going.
Yeah.
So what I found was like I just doubled my working day like overnight. And I was like, this is a big problem. And I thought, okay, I decided I'm not going to be able to do a whole year of this. I just can't. I'll do 1 month because it's too embarrassing if I quit in January. I was like, I'll at least do a month. By the end of January, I was getting faster. Instead of taking 6 hours a day, it was taking maybe like 3.5, 4. And I was thinking, okay, it's still too much. It's still too much on top of all the other stuff I'm trying to do at the moment. By the end of February, I was like, I can get to the end of the year if I hire an editor. If I hire an editor, because it was the editing takes the most time.
It does. Yeah.
Editing, yeah, like editing is what sucks, to be honest. But you need to edit so that the thing looks good, so that it's all polished, nice and neat and wrapped up. So one of my best friends, his name's Dylan, he was working in a bar in Copenhagen with his girlfriend, his fiance actually, where he lives. He lives in Copenhagen with her. But he was working a bar job, which he hated. And I was complaining to him on the phone. He can edit as well. Like he knows how to edit. And he's gotten so, like when you do something every day as well, you get so much better. And he's gotten way better in the last 2 months. But I was complaining to him that I couldn't keep this up. And he was complaining that his bar job sucked. And I just said, okay, like I don't have a lot of money. I've got some from brand partnerships I've done and things like that. I said, if I just pay you more than what they're paying you in the bar, will you quit the bar and come and edit these? And he was like, yeah, of course I will. And so now he's been doing it for the last 2 months. Now all I have to do is write it and record it and then send it to him. And then obviously when he's finished the edit, approve it. If there's any changes, say the changes and then post it. But now it's manageable. And now I'm like, I've kind of got used to it. It's something I do every day. And to be honest, I kind of enjoy it. It's like, it's forcing me to make stuff in a different way. It's forcing me to try and find something interesting each day, you know, because I think if ever you're getting too comfortable with something, you need to mix it up and make it harder for yourself. Because putting a poem out once a month, like I'd gotten comfortable with that, but putting one out every day, I was like, whoa. And I'm not saying they're as good as the ones I was putting out once a month, because those ones I was able to put so much more time and thought into. But they're a different product. Like it's a different thing. Instead of like a really thoughtful, crafted poem, which I will go back to in the future, it's more like a little thought for the day. It's more like, here's what I was thinking about today, you know, take it or leave it. And what's nice is in the future, I will be able to go back to any day of 2022 and find out what I was doing. Whereas if I said to you, like, what were you doing on June the 1st, 2008? You'd be like, I don't know. Like, you may know roughly what
I
you were
wasn't
doing
even born, so.
You weren't born in 2008. Oh, that's so
I
depressing.
was. 16 days later. Nearly there.
You were born 60. Okay, well, I was thinking of if you said to me, what was I doing? But wow, oh my goodness. You are very impressive for your age. Congratulations. This is really depressing for me. But yes, well done. But what's cool is in the future, I'll be able to go back to any day of 2022 and be like,
Yeah.
bam, that's what I was doing. So yeah, it started stressfully, but I'll see it through because I'm very competitive.
Yeah.
But
I
also
kind of
not
know
competitive with other people, like with me.
with yourself. Yeah, I kind of know how you felt for the first like month, because I took on a challenge that's just finished like last week, where I posted on TikTok every single day to try and grow it, and it did grow quite a lot. It grew by like 300 followers or something.
That's amazing though. But honestly, if
And
you kept that going, like it would be just like I do understand that we all have the same amount of time in the day, and so you need to decide, do I want to grow the podcast, do I want to grow the TikTok? Now they don't have, I'm not trying to go Gary V on you here, but they don't have to be different. Like what you post on TikTok every day could just be a 30-second clip from one of the podcasts.
Yeah, that's what I did. I did
That's what you're doing.
3 videos a week was the clips that I'd just been posting before, and the other 4 was new videos that I did.
Nice.
But yeah,
why did you stop that?
Because I went on holiday last week, so
well, start it again, because that's a really good idea, and TikTok will grow your podcast so much.
Yeah, that's that was my idea with it. So yeah, I am gonna continue the TikTok hopefully, because I know it's.
What's your TikTok name? I'm gonna follow you
now. The Brit Kids Show, so it's the exact same.
Nice.
And because I've got like a personal channel as well, I made a YouTube video along with it, so I posted on TikTok to see how it grew my podcast. So that was the idea behind it. And then I might try it with Instagram Reels and YouTube Shorts potentially, eventually as well. So we'll just we'll just speed up a little bit to try and finish off in a nice way. Is it hard coming up with ideas and writing a poem every single day, or has it got easier?
I thought it would be hard. What I've realized is it's more of a game of noticing things, in the sense of interesting things happen to every single human being on planet Earth every single day. And I really mean that. When I say interesting, I mean I don't mean winning the Powerball. I mean like even the smallest things. Like one day I was looking after my granny, who's 95, and she's got dementia, and she's not really supposed to be able to do stairs on her own anymore. But I was looking after her, and I was doing work, and I heard a noise. I looked up, and she walked competently down the stairs all on her own, and I was just like, wow. I was like, wow, good for you. And so I wrote, that day's poem was about that. And what I mean is that kind of interesting, or geopolitically interesting. There's a war in Ukraine, or Will Smith has slapped Chris Rock at the Oscars. It's like, oh my goodness, what do you think about this? And so something interesting happens every day. Really, it does. Whether that's in your family, or with famous people, or with politicians, or it's just something you've been thinking about because you watched a good film, or you read a good book, or there was an interaction at school that made you think about something, or whatever. It doesn't matter. What used to happen to me was you notice those things, you think about it for a little bit, and then you forget about it. But now, because I need something to write about every day, I've become way better at noticing what those things are. And as soon as the game is completely based on the faith that I'll notice something every day, because a day may well roll around and I'll be like, I have no idea what's right about today. And that hasn't happened yet. And I hope it doesn't happen. But really what it is every day I'm just looking for it's changed the way I'm looking at the world. I'm looking at the world for I'm looking for ideas. What's interesting? And then something happens and you go, ooh. And then you run away from your friends, really antisocially, with my little notepad, and you scribble an idea down, and then you're like, great, got it. That's today's.
Yeah. So I'll go on to one of my last questions. What advice would you give to people wanting to do poetry?
People wanting to do poetry. I mean, I don't have different advice for people wanting to do poetry than for people wanting to do anything, which is, the best piece of advice there is not mine. It's what my university lecturer said to me when I was graduating. What he said to me was, he said, Tom, you're about to go out into the world. The first thing you have to do is find a way to pay your rent. He was like, whatever that is, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether that's working in a bar, working in a call center, it doesn't matter. You have to find a way to pay your rent. Once you've done that, put all the rest of your energy that you're willing to spare into doing something that you enjoy. So yeah, basically it was like, what I liked about this piece of advice was it wasn't the annoying Hollywood advice, just follow your dream, man. Because it's like, you know, that piece of advice can feel very unrealistic. It's like, no, what this university lecturer was saying to me was, make sure that you're okay. Make sure that you can exist in the world, that you can sustain yourself, that you can survive, that you can stand on your own 2 feet. Do that. That's priority 1. Priority 2, though, because if you only do priority 1, yeah, you'll pay your rent, but you won't experience any of the joy or the color or the meaning to be found in life. So it's like, you've got to do both. You've got to do priority 1, make sure that you can sustain yourself. That's advice for after university. But if I was saying it to you, I would be like, make sure that you do the schoolwork you need to do so that you have a good understanding of maths and English and science, and that you pass your GCSEs, that you pass your A-levels. Like, do that, make sure that gets done. But once that's done, in all the other time and energy that you have, email Claudia Winkleman asking her to be on your podcast, you know, DM people, pester managers. Like, the idea that you shouldn't pester people is ridiculous. You absolutely should pester people. And some people, and lots of people say this to me all the time, like they used to and they still do. They're like, you're annoying me, stop. And those people, you're like, okay, fine, go pester someone else. There's lots of people, you know, and all you need to find is like someone who's like, yeah, I want to be on the Brit Kids show, because they can see that you are hungry and ambitious and you're going to make this show amazing. And then one day they're going to be talking to their friends and be like, I was on episode 52 of the Brit Kids show. And they'd be like, no, you weren't. I'd be like, yeah, yeah, I was. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, bro, just, I know it's not like poetic advice, but I just think with anyone that has something that they enjoy doing, do it. Like, do it. Don't do it to the extent that you like everything else in your life falls apart, because that's not helpful. Like, it's not helpful to anyone if you can't look after yourself, you know, less so when you're your age, because you're kind of allowed to live in your parents' house, you're allowed to be more dependent. But as soon as you graduate university, it's like, what do you want to be, a burden? It's like, no one wants to be a burden to their family. You want to look after yourself. So and then be resourceful, I would say, which is another thing that you've done lots of.
Thank you. So thank you for being on today. Okay, it's been a lovely having you on. I think this is one of my best conversations I've had with a guest.
Oh, dude, well, thanks for having me, man. Thanks for asking.
Okay, thank you. It's been lovely having you on. Have a lovely rest of your night. Okay, bye.
Bye, mate. Take it easy.
So hopefully you've liked part 2 of my interview with Tomfoolery. I do want to say a massive thank you to Tom for giving so much of his time for an interview. If you want to check out more of Tom and his poems, the link to all of his socials and website are in the description down below. Sadly, that is all we have time for in today's episode. We will be back on the 19th of June at the same time with another great interview. Please share this video with your friends and family. Like, comment, listen to last week's episode if you haven't already. Listen to this show until the end. Email me and subscribe, because we are trying to get to 200 subscribers. And follow me on Facebook, Twitter or Instagram. In the meantime, if you have any suggestions to make the show better, or if you want the chance to come on the show, comment below, message me on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, or email me at thebrickidshow@gmail.com. So that is all we have time for this week. We will be back on the 19th of June at the same time, but for now, goodbye.
Bringing you a kid-friendly radio show. Every Saturday afternoon on YouTube. Broadcasting live at 1 o'clock. Broadcasting live at 1 o'clock.